And I worked on it for 2 years, putting an engine transmission in it, tearing the body all apart, fixing what he had done or damaged when he drag raced it. Got it to where I could drive it, and then found out I didn't fit in it. So I had to sell it.
Real cars, real guys, and real talk. Live from the gearbox at Unique Classic Cars. Welcome to Motorhood. Dan, you're back, and you just picked up a couple of fantastic Corvettes that you brought in.
I had a good weekend picking up 2 Corvettes.
And they're beautiful. We've got a 59 and a 62 and a bunch of other Corvettes. Let's go down and have a look.
All right, let's do it.
And here we go. Dan, 1959. 59 Corvette.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what made this car special.
Well, in 59, they had more options in engines, the performance over the 53s, 4s, and 5s. Finally, in my opinion, they cleaned up the 58 a little bit because the 58 had a washboard hood, which didn't do much for my taste, and had chrome strips down the middle of the trunk.
Sure.
So I think the 59 is a much nicer looking car as a result of those being removed.
Let's go on and look at the back here real quick.
All right.
Distinct styling on the back.
Yes, it is. And that follows through from the 56 to the 59 here. Didn't change hardly anything at all on the cars. What this particular car shows it's a little bit different is if you look at the 3 buttons on the deck right behind the seats, this car was equipped with a hardtop only, no convertible top, because there are no latches on that for the convertible top. I'll show you the latches when we get on the 62 a little later, because that has a convertible top.
Yeah, because we popped this open earlier, and there was nothing in there.
There's nothing in it. It's a storage compartment for just about 1 set of golf clubs.
Could you get that with the convertible top in there?
Top.
And the option with having both of them?
You could have had both of them, but this car evidently was ordered with just the hard top.
Right. If we can we'll pop it open real quick like we did earlier.
Sure.
Just take a quick look.
There we go.
Yeah. So that was just empty. But that is where the convertible would have been.
That's where the convertible would have folded. But now you could just about, like I say, squeeze in 1 set of golf clubs.
Lots of room. And the interior, it didn't change a whole lot. We'll get to the 62 coming up here in a bit, but
I think they're the same. The only difference between these 2 cars is that this plastic has a tendency to crack on a lot of them. When I picked this car up from that gentleman, he got tired of having to repair it all the time, so he had it leather wrapped, which makes it a nicer steering wheel, because I'm not a real big fan of these skinny steering wheels. I like a little more meat to grab.
As far as leg room in there, you and I were in this vehicle earlier. It's a little bit more crammed even than the newer ones.
It's a little bit. I can't get my knee up on the, between the steering wheel and the door where my knee needs to go to get to the clutch.
Right,
So it would be a little difficult to drive.
What did this have under the hood?
This has the 240 horse, I believe it is, 283 with 2 4-barrels. There were, I think, 4 options, maybe 5 of horsepower and engines in the 59 offered. There was fuel injection offered as well, but you see very few of those. The 2 4-barrels is the one that's more common when you talk about the performance engines.
Sure. Suspension and handling, since you're a vet guy and you've had some of the earlier vets and some of the newer, these cars were not quite equipped like they are today, obviously.
No, they're not going to go into a roundabout like the new ones.
No, right, because this was a standard suspension system for Chevrolet in the 50s.
Right, a passenger car suspension.
Yeah. And the tires?
Well, I've had bad experiences with bias ply tires. Yeah, I've tried them. I do not like them. But the purists like to put them on these cars, and if you're just going to drive them, they look nice.
Sure. These have the wide white walls. As you had mentioned to me earlier, they had actually changed that later.
They did. In 1961 was the last year you got this wider white wall. In 62, if you got a white wall, it was a little 1-inch white wall. And that progressed into 63, 4, and 5. You got narrower white walls. So they finally got away from the wide whites.
So the big change here was the first year of the dual headlights. What about this
58
emblem?
was actually the first year, but 15. That's been the same.
It's been the same? But when they switched
over...
Well,
they switched in the 61s.
Sure.
But through the 58, 59, 60, that was the emblem.
Is there anything else you wanted to mention about this car?
I picked these 2 up from the individual who consigned them to us. And when I got underneath them, to strap them down in the trailer, I just couldn't believe Chevrolet never made them this nice. The car, it's been a frame-off restoration. The frame has been powder-coated. All the suspension's been redone. It's got a finish on it that GM didn't have on them when they were new. It's beautiful.
Right, yeah.
And that black 62 is the same way.
Same way. Well, these came from the same owner.
Same owner.
Same owner, yeah. Because he now has...
Well, he now has another 59 that has an Art Morrison chassis underneath it with a 485 horse LS3, the crate motor, and rack and pinion steering. And he says, that one's fun to drive. And it does not have bias ply tires.
Right. It's got
radials on it.
That newer suspension and handling.
Right.
Which brings us to the 62. The story of this car is it kind of set up everything for the Stingray.
It was the precursor to the Stingray. The rear end changed dramatically in styling. It looks more like what they came out with in 63. The front is pretty much the same, but in my opinion, when they took away the teeth and put the bar in, it made it a whole lot simpler and I think better looking. That's a lot of flash. This is function.
So yeah, so you prefer a little bit more cleaned up front end.
More function than flash, yeah.
Right. Let's take a look around back because the back end of this is incredible. And of course, there you got it. It's got that more smooth, sloped back end.
It doesn't have the bubble in the back. It looks like the 63 back end of a convertible. They went with taillights, 2 round taillights mounted in the back panel. Rear bumpers that are more simple, just a straightforward, not trying to match the curve of the car.
Sure.
I think this is a nicer looking arrangement.
And when we had talked about this being the precursor to the Stingray, kind of setting up the push for better suspension and handling, what'd they change in this car?
I don't know that they changed anything in the suspension and handling in this car yet. I mean, they've got sway bars, but they're small. I think the big change was the independent rear end that came in 63. This still has the solid axle.
That's incredible to me that they had independent rear suspension in 63 because they were touting that even in the 80s with some of the Japanese imports, like that was a big thing.
Right.
And 20 years earlier, they had it in these Corvettes.
Well, Mustangs came up with an independent in 2015.
Wow. Incredible.
I stuck with it, yeah.
And the interior on this car.
Yep. The only thing that you really did change here is, I say, the steering wheel has been leather wrapped, which in my opinion feels good. We should maybe show them the convertible top that's in
Absolutely.
this one. So just grab the corner there. All manual tops. They did not have power tops in these years, so we had to run them up by hand.
And then it was just tucked back in.
Yeah, this went back
Drop
down.
it down. It's actually similar to some of the newer Vets, right?
This latched hook caught this. But yeah, that's what this latch is for.
Sure. Was what made it the precursor to the Stingray? What did they do different to this car?
One thing, the cove that you see on the older cars, it's gone. The shape is still here, but the trim has gone off of it, so it's just molded into the body with a little bit of a ridge.
Right.
There was no two-toning anymore. These were all one color, and that's it.
Right.
I think that cleaned up the look of the side of the car, too.
It sure does. And the aesthetics, you actually have a Corvette that had these added, right?
It had these added.
Oh, sure.
Like the 3 bars, I've got a C6 in 09 that had these. You can buy these aftermarket, and they glued them on the side. When I bought the car, I thought I was going to take them off, but then the more I looked at it, I said, no, I kind of like that going back to it. So.
Right. So the horsepower went from about 150
in the 6 cylinders.
In the 6 cylinders.
To 240.
This has 240.
I think it's 240, yes.
To this 327.
This is 300.
And it's got 300 horsepower.
And this is one model up from the base. I think the base was 240, 250, and then the next engine was 300, and then they went up to 390.
Incredible. You look at them, and to me, and I always ask you about this because you and I are both suspension and handling guys. It's cool to see the first steps of the engineering. It was all with weight distribution in these, right?
Yep.
Yeah, just moving them around. Okay, let's move up the aisle here and look at some of these newer Corvettes. This 82. This is the style that a lot of guys that are thinking classic Corvettes, before you get to the really old ones, this is what they think.
That's correct.
Like the Stingray body style, right?
Well, the Stingray name actually started in 63, but
really?
yeah, they still. What's interesting about this 82 in relationship to that 62 is that after this followed the big change to the C4s. And as a result, there really wasn't a 1983 Corvette.
Right.
It was an 82 and an 84.
Right.
Because they were too busy working on the 84.
What was the first Corvette you bought?
The first one I bought was in 1966.
Your first Corvette was
in 72.
Yeah, and a 72.
Yep.
And
But I did own a 59 for a while. Maybe you're thinking about that one.
I think I was thinking about that.
I bought a 59 as a project and worked on it for 2 years. It had been drag raced, was in a garage over by St. Clair, picked it up for next to nothing. And I worked on it for 2 years, putting an engine transmission in it, tearing the body all apart, fixing what he had done or damaged when he drag raced it. Got it to where I could drive it, and then found out I didn't fit in it. So I had to sell it.
Let's head back to the gearbox, take a look at some of your vets.
Looking forward to it.
All right.
So of the Corvettes that we just looked at, specifically I would have to say the 59 or the 62. Which one of those is your favorite?
From appearance standpoints, it would be the 59, but if I really wanted to drive it, it would be the 62, so I'm not going to take sides.
So that 59, you liked the grill on the front there with the teeth?
For appearance.
For appearance.
Yeah.
For appearance.
I think if I was going to look at a car and just kind of putter around with it, yeah, the 60 would be the one I'd probably pick. If I was going to drive it a lot, it would be the 62.
The 62, which we had mentioned when we were down on the floor, was kind of the precursor to the Stingray.
That's correct.
As they were going to approach that, I would say, whatever angle it would be on suspension and handling, right?
Right. Well, mostly styling to it. You look at the back end of that 62, it's an awful lot like what the 63s became.
Sure. What was your first Corvette that you bought?
The very first one I bought was in 1966, and I bought it in 72.
And you bought it in 72. What attracted you to that car?
My brother-in-law had a 66 coupe, and he was going away for about 2 weeks for his reserve duty.
Yeah.
He didn't want to leave it sitting in his driveway, and he said, Dan, take it to your house and drive it for 2 weeks, would you? I did. And then I told my wife we need to buy one.
Did you make it a daily driver for those 2 weeks?
Not daily, but I didn't take it to work or anything, but I would take it out every day and I would drive it somewhere just to get it moving.
Let me ask you this. How did you drive the car?
A little bit cautiously, since it was my brother-in-law's, and his brother had totaled out an earlier one he had.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be the candidate for, okay, that's two of them.
Was that your first experience driving a Vet?
It was.
It was?
Yes.
And you were hooked?
I was hooked.
You were hooked.
Yeah.
So you
have been since then.
So what did you do with your first Vet?
Well, the first one didn't last but about a year, and somebody backed out of a parking stall and busted up the front fender. So I took it back to Tim's Fiberglass, who I was working with at the time, and I had the insurance check, and I said, can we get this fixed? He said, I got a better idea for you. He said, I just finished one, and it has a hard top and a convertible top. You give me your car and the check, and you can take the other one away. Well, the other one hadn't been rubbed yet, so that's the first car I ever sanded, buffed, and got shining. I kept that car for 30 years before I got rid of it.
Was that the first body work, then, that you had done?
The first time I'd ever done a paint finish.
Really?
And then after that, I wound up working for them doing paint finishes.
And you learned that by yourself?
Yes.
That's incredible. Because every time I go to the back, I tell those guys I'm going to come back here and turn wrenches, and they were like, not a chance. Not a chance.
This just involved sandpaper, which is somewhat scary on a brand new paint job, and then a lot of polishing compound. And I did it all by hand back then. I did not have buffers.
Right.
So I was working by hand in my garage nights after work.
Right. So it was driving a Corvette that actually drew you to the car.
Right.
It was the same thing for me, because we had this discussion in the past when you were here about Mustangs, right?
Yes.
Your Boss 302, and you and I both have somewhat of a love affair with the GT350, the Shelby, right? Suspension and handling.
Yeah. I'm carefully admitting that I have this Ford fetish. Not generally out there in the public, but...
Right. Let me ask you, and Jeremy's going to get all worked up about this. She's like, why are you talking Mustangs again? Why the two side by side, Corvette, Mustang, if you had to pick one for suspension and handling, what would you grab?
Neither.
Neither?
Yeah, either one are. I mean, they've got differences, but I love both of them.
Sure.
And I'm amazed that we say I really like a Ford Mustang.
Sure.
Because I grew up not liking them at all.
I was kind of the same way, yeah.
No, but the Corvette still holds a fascination with me, and it's different than the Boss, but I don't want to give either one of them up.
Right. You're not going to give either one of them up. What do you own now? Which Vet do you have now?
I've got an 09 C6.
And you wound up trading a couple of vehicles in on that. You actually bought that here, right?
I did. I got it here. Well, almost everything I have, I got here. A good place to buy cars.
Right.
I traded in an earlier Corvette. It was a 99 coupe and a McLaren Capri that I had.
And you told me that McLaren did well, too.
It did. It was a fun car. I bought that here, too, and I had it for probably 4 or 5 years, mainly for my wife to drive, but then she kind of lost interest in driving it. I tried driving it. My feet are too big. The footwell was too small. I kept getting more than one pedal with one push on the brakes. I said, we may as well trade it in on this newer Corvette.
Right. So your first one was what year?
1966.
66, and then that one you said was short-lived because it got dinged.
Right.
And then you moved on to
another 66.
Another 66. Did you do work on that as well?
I did.
What did you do to it?
Well, I had new exhaust system it needed, brakes needed. Back when the speed limit was lowered to 55, I parked the car because I couldn't drive it that slow. And I didn't want to get that many tickets. That car had, and I told you this earlier, had a 308 rear end in it with a high-performance 350 horse engine and a 4-speed transmission. That rear end was typically involved in automatics, but this car had been specially ordered with that higher ratio. That car would do 145 miles an hour.
And you told me that you could tell the difference. Especially when you were going into corners, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's one corner on my way home that I go out on Riverfront, and I was running it at a certain RPM in, I think it was third gear, and it was 60 miles an hour, 65, and I think the speed limit was 55. I went in at that same RPM in the same gear, and last minute thought I better look at the speedometer, and I was doing close to 90.
And it didn't feel like it?
Well, I could tell I was going a little faster,
right.
But I didn't know it was that much faster.
Right, and so what was the result of that?
The result was I lifted on the throttle slightly.
If you're gonna get a Vet, are you a convertible guy?
No, not anymore.
Yeah.
I've lost most of my hair, and I don't need to lose any more of it in a convertible. So no, I'm pretty much a coupe guy now. But what's funny is when I got that in '66 and in that vintage, convertibles were cheaper. Everybody wanted the coupes, so they were always a higher price. So I bought convertibles. Today, the convertibles are more money and the coupes are cheaper.
That's incredible.
So I'm buying coupes.
Right. And you've got yours is in, what's the latest one you got?
It's the 09.
The 09. Yeah. What would it take for you to unload that Vet and move on to another one? The hunt is never over, Dan.
It'll be a blue one.
Because yours is blue, right?
Yeah, it's just blue. I've fallen in love with blue.
Because Jay, in our detail shop, who does all them videos that you see on our Unique Classic Cars, .com, said if that car would have been white, he would have snatched that out from under you.
He has said that repeatedly, but he won't get it. He's given up. He said, no, you're keeping that one blue. I have run into the guy who traded it in here and future deliveries that I've made to his house, and he recognized or knew I had bought the car, and so he's been pleased that it has stayed with one owner for so long and that I've taken care of. I'm a good caretaker. That's as Jeremy would say.
It's amazing how guys follow their cars around, or they go looking for ones that they've unloaded, right? Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. It's cool. Do you have all of them? You have them in a storage garage.
I do.
Yes. How many cars you got now?
Well, total cars I have 13, but I've got 10 collector cars, and 10. 9 of them are in that garage.
You know what we have to do, and I don't even know how we would do this, but I think it would be fun sometime for you and I to grab a couple of these other yahoos, get into the Templeton, and just sit out there some night and record.
We could do that.
Wouldn't that be something?
Jay, Jeremy, and I were out there just this last Thursday night, and
right.
So yeah, it was quite a night.
You're and we've talked about this before, but you're a suspension and handling guy, right? Mm-hmm.
And you were showing me when you popped in this morning some of the dune buggies that you had actually raced.
Yes.
How when I look at those cars, I'm like, how can you even think about that?
Well, it was fun, and I was 40 years old. Keep that in mind. So my mindset might have been a little bit different than it is today.
Sure.
And I just wanted to go whale on something. And the best place to do it was with the autocross courses. And so I bought the first one, which they'll show you a picture later on, that doesn't look like any dune buggy that most people had. It's been lowered. It's got racing slicks on it. There's no windshield, no headlights, no taillights. It's just probably about a 1,500-pound car with a 140-horse motor.
You've actually, because I saw you doing that with actually studded tires on a lake.
One of the dune buggies I had was off-road dune buggy, and I equipped it with some studded tires for a lake. Yes, and I used to go out in the wintertime and raise a little hell.
And then raise a little hell. And that just kind of gave you the itch, right?
It did. Matter of fact, I had 2 motors for that car, and I've been known to, in the winter, on the ice, change motors.
Really?
One wouldn't run right, so I put the other one in.
That quickly?
They're easy. Dune buggies are easy. There are 4 bolts, and the motor comes off along with a cable and a wire. So here I am in the ice, pulling a motor off and putting another one on.
What do you got there in your hands right now?
Pictures I've got pictures of a 1960 Corvette that I had at one time.
Really?
Bought it as a project, worked on it for 2 years. It had been drag raced, and it had a huge scoop in the hood. Rear wheel wells had been enlarged for slicks, and other modifications had been done to it. So I put a motor and a transmission in it, got it running, and then did body work for 2 years. And then I tried to drive it, and I found out I don't fit in it.
Really?
Yep, so I had to sell it. My leg is too long.
So you did all of that work, finished the car, and then when you were done...
Well, it wasn't finished. It was just fiberglass work, and it was ready for primer and paint.
Sure.
And that's when I took it out and tried to drive it and have some fun with it. I didn't feel... I couldn't get my knee between the steering wheel and the door panel.
Let me ask you this. This is going to be... have you driven a C8?
I have.
Let me ask you, what is that like compared to even the versions before it, since they've got that mid-engine placement?
I think it's much better.
Really?
Yes. And if I would be tempted for a C8 if it wasn't for the cost. I kind of have a limit on what I'm willing to spend on each car. And not willing to pay $1,000 for license plates either.
Right. The thing about it is when guys come in initially to shop for vehicles here, Corvettes seem to be very popular. Not necessarily the C8, right? But you can get a really nice C6 or C7 for what car guys would consider an affordable price.
Right, in my price range.
Right, right, exactly.
You can get them, 40 and under.
Yeah.
Nice ones.
Yeah, we have them in here all the time. And initially you come in, you're like, I want something that looks cool, that handles really nice, and it's in my price range. And that's why a lot of guys wind up in Corvettes. Well, you know what? We have to get that time set up for us to all be somewhere in your garage. I would really like to come to your garage and do it, because I think that would, especially if we get these guys over there and we put a few whiskeys in them.
Well, yeah, we might want to do it early. Take the 30 minutes kind of at the beginning of the session, not the end.
Right.
Stories come out. There's some really funny stuff that happens.
Well, thanks for stopping by, man. I appreciate you.
Glad to do it anytime.
You're coming in here because Jeremy's down while he's buying more cars.
Good.
Because it's that busy time of year, right?
It is. Things are going to pick up.
And if there's one thing I've learned, especially talking to you, if you're ever in doubt,
gas it.
Gas it.